This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I know, maybe that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'd like to call our August 15th meeting to order. We do have a full agenda, having been off for a few months.
No, a month.
So if we can move through some of the earlier items and get to the more important aspects of our meeting. Minutes of our regular meeting from May 16th and minutes of our special meeting from June 14th. Did everyone have a chance to review them?
Yes.
Any questions or comments?
Are we doing them together? Or?
Yes, can we do them together?
Okay, well, I have a question on the 14th then.
Sure, what is it, Pat?
A suggestion. We did spend a bit of time talking about why we didn't cover this program during the budget cycle. And it's not in the minutes. I think there should be some reference to why we're dealing with it now versus not during the budget period. That would be my recommendation.
June 14th, the
Okay.
minutes.
Right, but what program are we speaking
No,
The
the
Supernumerary.
SRO.
SORs,
Yeah.
under Michael's description,
I asked why we were dealing with it then versus during the budget session, and Mike had an answer. And I think it might just be a good idea to include a sentence or two as to why we're dealing with it later.
okay.
Okay? Good.
Anything else on minutes? Got a motion to approve both as presented?
Make a motion.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got enough?
Motion-
As suggested to be
Why don't we do them
amended.
separately then?
Let's do them separate.
Yeah, okay.
Our regular meeting, May 16th.
I'll move them as presented.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our meeting from June 14th, amended to include one or two lines in regards to the reason Mr. Frieda gave for not having it during the budget process. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Probably one of the more time-consuming parts of this meeting, resolution for 17-18 budget transfers. Has everyone had a chance to look through them?
Yeah.
Are we-
Any questions?
So we're going to do the resolutions before we talk about revenue and expenses?
That's the way they have it listed on the agenda.
I know, but is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, this
we'd have
is-
to have a motion to
Okay.
amend the agenda.
The agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem doing the transfers first. Is there a
Well,
reason?
in order to do that, we have to discuss the budget results. I think
All right.
that I'd like to change the order of the agenda.
Can I have a motion to modify the agenda to move the budget reports before resolving budget transfers?
I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
May reports.
Thank you for
Thanks.
making this.
We aim to please. May reports. Anyone have any questions or comments on May's reports? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the reports as presented?
Make that motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. June reports.
I think I have a question or two.
Let me get caught up too, because
Yeah, I just got to find them. I believe I had two questions. One, I did talk to Ed about today, and may not get an answer today, but if we could go to the Board of Ed report for June, and just go to the last page. So I looked at this report today, and I noticed that, do you have it?
Yep.
Everybody have it?
The Munis?
Yes.
This one, Pat.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
dense version one?
Yeah.
Okay, Tim.
This one, Diane. Sorry, this one.
Oh,
All right, so the last page, I called Ed on today and asked him, I noticed that this is a listing of the grants that we got from the state and federal government for the Board of Ed through June, our fiscal year end, and if you just go to some of the totals for a moment, it makes the conversation easier, but take, for instance, look at the state grants. We were awarded $2,167,000, we received $1,509,000, and it says remaining balance $657,000, and then it says remaining balance BOE designated. So I asked the question, and I do understand we have an interim director of finance for the Board of Ed now, but my question was, well, if it's beyond the year end now, it's now August, as we all know, and we haven't gotten $657,000, and Ed tells me, by the way, we did not get anything in July either, so this number, I believe, is still accurate. I would assume we're not getting this money in, and then they designated $465,000 of it, so my question was then, okay, are we getting the 657 in, and if the answer is no, then what does it mean on this 465? Did they expend this money, or is it encumbered in some way, and if so, how did they cover it? And I have like similar questions for the federal, but the totals being $841,000 between state and federal money yet to be received as of year end, of which 557 was designated by the Board of Ed. So I don't know that we have an answer for that today, because Ed would have had to check with the Board of Ed, and I think at this time that's not
Yeah,
an option.
but there's even more questions than that, though.
Go ahead,
To those lines, which I've already
Sorry,
marked
okay,
up
Mike,
here.
go ahead.
No, just to piggyback here on Mr. Dehaney's very obvious analysis of this. The amount awarded is in column 1, and we're sorry for those who cannot see what we're reading here, but we have 5 columns. The first column gives us the amount that I guess was destined to be awarded, that we expected. And the second column has a monthly receipt amount. And the third column is titled year-to-date received. So you're right that the remaining balance is the fourth column, which is $657,000. Now, it also does not account for how much of the grant money has been spent or allocated within, we assume, a separate budget that the Board of Ed must hold for that. For each and every one of these accounts, they have to have a budget for how it's applied, how it's expended. And we never get to see that.
No, because it's outside our budget.
Right. So.
We can ask for it.
But I do know that some of these grants were supposedly, in the past, 2-year grants.
Yes.
So it's possible that the remaining balance, which I guess is the unreceived portion of the grant, is coming as part of a 2-year program. Although
have to ask.
although that's not half, that's less than half of what the total amount was. Do you understand my questions here?
Ed said to me that some of these might be 2 years, but I thought the same thing you did, Mike, that, you know, if you would assume, maybe incorrectly, but you would assume that if it was a 2-year grant, you'd get roughly half in, and I guess on the excess cost, we've gotten in, you know, really more than half. And you're right, by the way.
This is just a revenue report.
Right.
This
Yeah.
has nothing to do with expenses at all.
No.
No.
No, but I think she's in, or whoever's indicated the excess carried forward, which I would assume meant there was 2 years here.
Which item
Under
is
state,
that?
under state,
Huh?
where it says excess cost carryover portion prior year. I mean, that
Where
was,
does it say that?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
to me, that
On
would
this
mean
line.
there's
So
another.
Oh, I'm
this-
seeing, right,
So this
okay.
line must be a portion of that line.
It's carryover.
Yeah, I see it, yeah.
So the carryover must come from a prior year, and this is, and the excess cost must be what's expected in this year?
Well, that's a good observation, right, because they got all the previous year's excess cost carryovers.
I think what needs to be done, though, in
They
the
need-
future is they need to label the start and end date for all the grants. That's the only
Yeah.
way anybody's going to be able to follow.
They used to have
Because I don't
that.
know if it's part of another
Yeah, didn't we
grant
have
or
that
it's
They
one?
used to
separate.
have start and end dates.
Right.
It's been modified.
Well,
This
Mike
is
is correct
short
too, and it's
version.
actually pointed out at the bottom, that if you look at the last footnote, the line, It says these costs are intended to be expended according to each grant specified. Sorry, Mike. there.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and I think the important point of that is that most grants, if you don't expend the money, you gotta give it back.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I guess we have a few questions on this report.
Right, so this bottom corner figure, remaining balance to be designated, does that all of a sudden become,
Actually says designated, not
Excess.
to be designated.
Excess costs?
It says remaining balance, Board of Ed designated. I took that to mean they designated it and/or spent it, Mike. It's a question really on my part, but,
If it's a 2-year grant, normally you get to carry forward, and if
Right.
you haven't spent it all in the second year, then that may go back.
but to your point, Mike's, this one item that says excess cost, given the fact they've got another line that says from prior year, you would think that this $1,262,000 was all for this year.
yeah, but this amount is designated but not yet received.
Well, this is what's not received, and part of that was designated, and I took that to
Right.
mean they either expended it or encumbered it or something
Well, you
like
can't
that.
designate what's not received. You're saying this is part of that? Or I'm
I
not
take
so
it,
part of
when I
that.
take this, say, obviously the math is, on the state side, they got a grant of $2,167,000, they got $1,509,000, they haven't got the $657,000.
Right.
Of that, I took it to say that they, of 465 of the 657, they designated for expenditure.
In this
either-
current year.
But it hasn't come in.
No, that's my question.
hasn't. That's the
Hasn't come in, so
question.
I'm saying, what's designated? They didn't get the money, so what does that mean? Is there a,
Good question.
is there an encumbrance somewhere, or what?
It's-
Do you want to ask
Yeah.
them to expand upon it?
It's committed.
I can't ask this guy,
You can't ask this person?
because I think he's busy with
Yeah.
his priorities right now. I mean, down the road I will, but
Yeah.
maybe once a new person is settled in that position,
Yeah, I
but right
think-
now,
yeah.
he's got enough right now
Someone on
just
the
to
phone, we
get
want
day-to-day
answers.
things done. I could
All
ask,
right.
but-
It's a
You know
Do you
what,
have a
though, Ed?
lifeline?
Is there someone in charge, I know what you're saying, and I agree with it, but is there someone in charge, actually in charge of the grants there? Was it not just?
No, just the business manager.
Just
Okay, all right.
one person.
Yeah.
So Tina's not with him anymore?
No.
No.
I only found out today myself.
Okay.
Is there anything else in the May reports?
We're on
Or
June.
June reports? June reports,
I just
sorry.
got one question
I
for Ed.
hope,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
well, I would like the group to either correct my assumption or confirm, but when I looked at the post-June 30 reports, the revenue and expenses, it looks like we underestimated revenue, which given last year, I can understand why, and we overestimated expenses. Is this true?
No.
You guys, I guess you gotta give me some
Yeah,
numbers,
give-
Pat.
Oh, I'm sorry, well, if you look
Come
at
some specifics.
the June 30th final posting,
Give me one this
On
expenses or revenues?
I'm looking at revenue right now. The last page.
The one dated 7/20, because there's two here.
723.
7/23, I got it.
You're
Yep,
really, you're
I got it.
jumping into the budget.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, well, I thought we were moving
We are
on.
on
This is just, these are the
Oh,
reports.
we're doing the reports, though.
Report.
This is the
I thought-
report.
She's in, these
Yeah,
are
okay.
reports. June's, it's
All right.
June's report.
And that's what I
June's-
thought we were doing.
Yeah,
We are.
Okay,
They're
so,
related.
so let me, correct me if I'm wrong. On page 3 of the July 23rd report for revenue, it looks like we have more than we thought we were going to have.
By 494,000.
Right, so
Right.
that's an underestimate of what we thought we were getting. Is that correct?
You are never going to accurately estimate revenue.
No, I understand
Yes.
that.
Wait, that's covered in your letter. It's in your letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's a letter, Pat, that was in the package. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that?
Apparently not. Well, I
Yeah.
just want to know, am I correct?
494, we were over budget in revenue.
Oh, that one. I didn't see that. Oh, sorry, well.
Yeah.
So
Right, there's-
then we're underestimated in expenses, correct? Because if you
The
look,
expenditures, don't forget, we charge out to the MRSA fund.
Yes,
In the
okay.
tune of $1 million.
yes, I
Right.
understand that. I just want to, I'm looking at the reports, and I
Right.
want to make sure I read them
That-
correctly.
correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And when I ran this revenue report the first time, I didn't move the million out, so I had to rerun it the second time. That's why it says.
Okay.
Oh, is that why you
I was
got?
closing it in the process,
I
so
got it.
I couldn't go back and do it the old way.
Thank you.
Jim had a question, right?
Jimmy has something?
Yeah, I just want, Ed, help me out here. I'm a little slow on the draw on this one. But I'm looking at the pre-year end close and the post.
For expenditures or revenue?
expenditures, on page 13.
Yep.
I'm going to commend the departments, they all fell in line, they all look great. But I just have a question with the streets and roads. On the pre, it was bottomed out at 114%, and on the post, it's down to 72.
This transfer in the
Yeah,
Mercy.
because I moved on the page, the last page, 18 of the pre-year and close is my reconciliation. It's a-
I just wanted to see where you reconciled, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I took the MRSA money and paid it out of the.
Okay, it was MRS, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's on the revenue and the expense.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Anything else in June?
Yeah, I guess just one final question. So on the special funds, just on recreation and police outside duty,
Yes.
so do we normally just leave that money in? Do we ever move it out?
Well, I'm gonna move out whatever I had in the budget for this year,
Okay.
this fiscal year, June
Right.
2019.
And recreation, I know we run a deficit early part of the year too anyways,
Yeah, it's
right?
kinda hard to judge that one, because a
Yeah.
lot of it ends up in programs, so. it's-
Right, okay.
We're good with June, how about July?
We just got
We
it.
just
so-
got it. How are we supposed to
Well,
look?
it's early in the year.
Yes, we're supposed to look that quick.
You have to approve June reports.
No,
We're-
Right.
approve June.
We're under budget on
We didn't
snow
get to
removal.
approve both May, all
We
right.
didn't approve May?
We didn't approve May either, so, all right, we
Yes,
did?
we are.
You did, yeah.
We
Like
approved
that.
All right, can I have a motion to approve June reports as presented?
Make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. July reports. Again, as you said, we were just handed
We just
July
got it.
reports.
Pretty fast.
read fast. Not
And
the
revenue
first.
45%. Anyone seeing anything I mean, again, your
It's kind of early,
month of the year, there's nothing that's jumping out at me.
too early, right?
Is there any questions on July?
Not for me.
Can I have a motion to accept July's reports as presented?
I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving back to budget transfers. I can read the resolutions and then we can discuss it. Can we do all three? We can't do all three because we have to do one at a time.
individually.
Resolved, the Board of Finance approved adjustments in the appropriation of certain line items for fiscal year 2017, 2018 budget transfers amounts under $20,000 to accounts as follows. Budget transfers of $444,858.07. Can I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all,
Just give me 1 second to find the
Sure.
right page, Rich.
I would like to discuss year-end budget
we
numbers.
can, yeah, you can stop during any resolution on whenever, at the
Yeah,
end if you want.
I guess now, it's almost an appropriate time. Tim, what do you want to do?
All right, so we
This is
have
the under 20 we just did?
under
Yes.
20.
All right, I don't have any questions, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolved that the Board of Finance approved adjustments in the appropriations within the same department in the fiscal year 2017, 2018 budget. Transfers amounts over 20,000, the accounts as follows. Budget transfers totaling $546,418.05. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
What is your question?
It's not about the adjustments, it's about the budget. The end of the year budget numbers that we have before us, which really is related to the June 30th end of year report. So it could have been discussed at that time. So the first question is about the so-called MRSA listed account that we have. And in order to differentiate it from the true MRSA account, can we call it the TABA account, the Town Aid Bonded Account?
Call it whatever you want.
Well, the problem is it's not MRSA because it was never revenue. It's bonded aid to the town.
To us, it's revenue.
What?
To us, it's revenue.
But it
The
wasn't,
state bonds it.
but it
We
wasn't
don't bond it.
revenue, it wasn't revenue to the state that they're sharing. Municipal revenue sharing account. It was never revenue to the state.
No, but it's
Well,
revenue.
let me
to
ask
us.
this.
What's revenue?
What's the significance of relabeling it?
So it's not confused with the MRSA account? Because there is a
You're
MRSA.
looking at the special funds.
Because there's a MRSA, but if you look at the income, look at the, an income report from last year, there is a municipal revenue sharing account. Is that correct?
That might be a one-time account, though.
So here's that, Marilyn. Here it is.
See, the MRS Additional Sales Tax Fund, that is the true MRSA account.
But Mike,
What we
no
have.
money was funded.
Huh?
There was no money funded.
Well, I know that. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it certainly is not, it's different from how we list the MRSA account here, the MRSA bonded distribution. It's called, when it comes from the state, is it called Town Aid Bond? Is it?
I know we get one wire in until
Yeah.
June, that's it.
All right.
Does MRSA even exist anymore? I thought it didn't exist next year.
I think it's gone.
I thought it was going away
I
myself.
thought it was going away next
Well,
year.
yeah, I think this is our
No, we
last.
haven't, well, it might go in 2020, but we have it budgeted for this year, that we were supposed to get it. We were told we would get it for this fiscal year
And we didn't get
that
it.
we're in.
All right, so anyway, whether it's relabeled or not, on the special revenue of June 30th here, the sheet here, we see that the year-to-date expenses for what you list here as the MRSA account, 1169, which differs from the amount that was applied toward operational expenses during the year.
Right,
Slightly, slightly.
because it probably didn't, June probably didn't make that spreadsheet, because we were just doing it, we just probably charged it right to the MRSA fund, so that might be a discrepancy.
Well, it's slightly more. I didn't know if there was any other,
Oh, in it, yeah, there's, at the beginning of the year, there was a small piece of equipment.
piece of equipment.
Yeah, if you go back, I think it was July or August.
Yeah.
There was a piece under 10,000, I want to say.
Well, you talking about the $4,000 difference, Mike? Is that what you're talking about?
No. I'm talking about this difference versus what was applied at the.
In June?
Yeah, in June. The 1,169,000.
169.
No. Is that
No,
wrong?
that's the revenue number. He's talking about the expense number.
How's this expensive?
It's in that. That's what was applied, special funds applied to the budget within the year. 1072.
That's the 720 revenue report. So this is the expense report.
Yeah, well, he typed this on the last page of the,
Right.
of
Expense report
the pre-year-end close
for 720.
for, it was 7:30, yeah, or 6:30.
It's 720, right?
Oh,
He
yeah,
gave
no,
us-
but that's the date it was done.
I know, but he gave us two reports. That's why I'm asking. I got it.
Yeah. Okay, so, thank you, thanks for that. Obviously, you know, we see that the difference between the two reports given to us on June 30th, which represents the end of the budget year. The two differences are, of course, the encumbrances that were paid post-June 30th, and the MRSA revenue that was applied to items within the budget of over $1 million. And so I want to commend you on the transparency with these two reports and being able to compare them each. have we ever done it this way before?
No, what happened, Mike, was once I was in the process of closing the year, and once I close it, I can't
Yeah.
go back and change any of my reports.
Right.
So then, to go back and rerun that expenditure report, I had to make my adjustments in a, what's called period 13, it's when you make all your adjustments.
Yes.
So I make them there and then go back and run a new report.
I understand, because now we have something, a report prior to when the special funds were applied, that we can use now to compare year to year. I mean, that's, as opposed to some year-end report only that's issued after the application of those funds, after the reduction of those accounts, the way you've handled it. And so this is excellent, and so now we can truly measure the performance of the department heads and of each and every one of the portions of the budget year to year. So again, I want to say thank you for producing 2 reports. To me, that was helpful.
Okay.
The question comes up, though, is how much of a, before we get to that, let's go year-end to the Board of Ed here. They broke even on their budget, having a balance of $11,000. I see in their health insurance that they did end up with what they expected was a deficit of $373,000. Now, how much of that was caused by the possible underestimation of the number of covered persons? Because we noticed at the same time that the teacher's regular salary was above their budget by 2.3%. So is it possible that their 6.7% overage in the healthcare line was partially due, 1/3 due to an underaccounting of covered persons?
No, I think what's happened, and I met with Dr. Cronin and his interim business manager and a few other people the other day regarding the handling of their insurance fund. It's supposed to be split so that 1/12 every month is sent over to the self-insurance fund. What happened was they were sending over some money and paying some bills on their own. So part of the expenses are there, part of them are in the self-insurance fund. So without looking at both of them at once, you can't see the total picture. You know what I'm saying?
But the Board of Ed now is corrected in their procedures of how they're supposed to deal with it?
Right. So we're all on board because we just met last week to get this ironed out so that we'll get 1/12 every month. We'll pay all the bills and go from there. Otherwise, what could happen is, what the Anthem does is they take the money out of our account every month, several times a month, and pay the claims and any other expenses. But if they went and paid a few bills on their own, Anthem's still going to take the money out of our account. And I think that might have happened at some point because we got money back in the account. So that's why that's got to get cleaned up. And once a new business manager's in there, I'm sure that'll be straightened out.
All right. Also, at the end of their report here, they, this is not period 13 probably, they show encumbrances of $810,000 roughly. Do you think they're quite accurate in the amounts that are owed? And if they knew they had a bill for a certain amount, why wouldn't they just pay for it before June 30th?
Maybe because the bills haven't come in.
Yeah.
You know, because I questioned some of that because one of the numbers was a huge encumbrance for leasehold payments, and it's over 200,000 if I'm not mistaken. But it's typical for them to have a substantial amount of encumbrances at the end of the year, as do we on the town side.
Yeah.
But I talked to the new temporary business manager, and he's assured me that he was going to work on cleaning those up so we have everything resolved in the next month or so.
All right.
Because they're being paid off as we speak right now, in July and August.
Okay. Now, between the pre and post budgets here,
Yeah.
expenses for June, I guess it's listed as June 30th. The police ended up getting back on page 8 approximately $24,000. Was that on the personnel overtime, the personal full-time line?
What page looking at, Mike?
On the post-year-end close, page 8 expense, there's an adjustment for $24,000. Was that just an overpayment?
No, something might have just been misclassified and you'd have to double check what it is, but
Okay. All right.
Like, what's the 24 on page 8?
Pre or post?
oh, I know what it was. It's the SROs for the Board of Ed.
Oh, is that what it is?
Okay.
We don't always get the bills regularly, so
I see.
if I might get
Yeah,
6
very good.
months all at once, so we had to make the adjustment to credit the police overtime for it.
Yeah.
Anything else, Michael?
The year-end letter here, which certainly is a good overview and lets us know that we have an unappropriated fund balance that remains at 8%. Is there a way, do you list on here what the publicly stated surplus is for the town?
No.
No. So what, in your estimation, or your,
Well-
what did we end up in the black?
The total of the, let's see, where's that letter?
I'm not following you, Michael. What number are you actually looking for?
Thank you.
The fund balance is $9,184,000.
Yeah.
494 plus the underage in expenditures.
Okay, 9,000,000.
You want the
183.
unappropriated?
Million.
No,
what's that?
I'm not looking
What-
at
what-
that.
total?
I'm not sure what number you're looking for.
I'm just looking at, I'm looking to find out what,
Around a million seven and
after
change.
revenue and expenses, which Pat Brown mentioned before,
Yeah.
are reconciled, how much did the town end up in the black
$1,700,000.
from the current year?
But what we
Yeah.
were speaking, what Mike had talked about was available unappropriated fund balance.
Okay.
Keep in mind, out of that 1,700,000, you've budgeted $1,050,000 in the 2019 budget, and on top of that, you've had a meeting to set aside $220 additionally.
SORs.
And then there were, at that point, some items that I still had to close out. Because we're still in
Yeah.
the process,
Make sense?
It does. So we're stating then that in the past fiscal year, ended up with a surplus of $1.77 million, right?
Right, but keep in mind, the way we talk at government is, that also includes the use of fund balance from the prior year, so that's in your revenue number.
Yeah. Wherever the revenue comes from,
Right.
it came from prior surpluses. And by the way, I just misstated that. I have $1,772,000.
Yeah, I said 1,700,000 something.
$1,700,000, yeah. So that's pretty significant. That's the biggest surplus we've ever run in this town. But because it's because of the unexpected revenue in some cases that that the state gave to us. And that is amazing because there's two categories of revenue that did not come in, right? The MRSA money didn't come in, and the elderly, which is over 200,000.
Correct, but it was offset by a few other items that came in over budget.
Yeah. All right. Well, that, for the most part, that was the conclusion I just wanted our board to get to. That, the whole point of this discussion is at the end now, because it's reconciliation time, for us to know that as a board, we ended up with a $1.77 million surplus.
And it also could be, Michael, that the departments within the town
Oh, no,
are
everyone
watching
contributed.
their budgets very,
Yeah,
very closely.
no, it's, there's many reasons behind it.
Yes.
And certainly our department heads, for the most part, deserve commendation. Yeah.
Agreed.
Ed, were there a lot of staff departures? It looks like,
Excuse me?
were there a lot of staff departures? Because the salary lines look lower in some cases.
Well, what we had tried, Mike and I had tried to do throughout the year was not fill positions right away. So most of them eventually were filled, they were just not filled right off the bat.
Yes, okay.
Now, in addition, the MRSA account actually grew by, what, $200,000 or $300,000 from one year to the next. So that's actually some additional money that we receive that's not included in our budget reporting, because it's a separate, it's a pre-general fund account. The money from the state goes to
Same
that
way it's
account
been for the
first.
past 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's why we're able to buy all these capital items we're
yeah,
buying.
right. And it's because that you decided, we did it, and we give you this discretion to use whatever MRSA account money you want to offset expenses within our budget. So this, since the MRSA account is outside of our budget reporting, our budget surplus could have could be anywhere could have been anywhere between $770,000 and $1,770,000. But because we used $1 million from the MRSA account toward our expenses, our surplus is $1,770,000. Is that
$1.3 million, which is going to carry over to be used in next year's budget, this current year budget.
okay?
We good?
That's good. I just wanted clarity.
Clarity is always a good thing. Any other questions or comments on that resolution? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, next one, resolve that the Board of Finance recommends the following adjustments and appropriation of certain line items among the various departments in the 2017-2018 budget. Transfers amounts over $20,000 as follows. Budget transfers of $443,350.72. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment that the fire OT is really stands out.
For the transfers.
Yes.
And what's the consultants again, Ed?
Yes.
Remind me, please, what the consultants are?
In building or
Fire,
fire?
please, fire. That the marshal
Does the
office?
plan review?
Right.
More easy one that's generating all the dollars.
Well, the dollars aren't being generated. We have that report this evening.
No,
No,
the building permit,
the permit.
dollars.
Oh, that's not in the
Yeah.
special funds?
It's in building
It's a line
permits, I
item.
believe,
No.
or there's just a line
No.
item for fire.
No, it's a revenue item.
Yeah, there's revenue.
It's
Okay,
revenue.
revenue.
Yeah, we're getting our bang for our buck there, that's for sure. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved that the Board of Selectmen be requested to call a special town meeting or include same on the agenda of the annual town meeting for appropriation of certain line items among the various departments in the fiscal 2017-2018 budget transfer amounts over $20,000. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any questions or comments? None. That finishes transfers. Next item on our agenda. Actually, I have two things. We're going under other business, old business. You all were given a letter from O'Connor Davis, our new auditors.
Yes.
Before I sign this, did anyone have a chance to read it?
I read it.
Before I sign it, does anyone have any reservations in me signing it? Is there anything that I don't know that you know?
I guess the question is, do we have any knowledge of anything in there that,
Do we have any knowledge?
Are you talking about this letter?
Yes.
Now, Can you tell me, someone, what paragraph 5 means?
I gotta find it.
What am I seeing that
Paragraph
you're not
5?
seeing?
Yeah, I don't see-
Paragraph 5, generally starting here.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's not the letter I'm
Oh, you're
discussing.
talking about
I'm
this?
sorry. This.
Yeah,
The
right,
one, this
okay.
Oh, this one. Well, I have a question.
Shoot.
So you're asking all the board members to...
Well, they're asking me to sign this and saying, and I know of nothing. If someone else knows of something and they'd like to include it in this letter, so be it. I mean, the standard order, crossing the T, dotting the I.
Sure, I understand. Well, I have a question. And it's related to what we discussed some time ago about the senior center and the missing funds there. And I know it's not part of the town budget, but it was a town employee. So is there any issue there with the auditing?
It's prior to this fiscal year that he's involved with, but
But the court
it
case...
wasn't, there was no town funds
okay.
involved.
Yeah, it was a
Alright.
private.
It was private, there was no town funds involved.
No, no, I understand that, but it was a town employee.
Yes,
Yes. Okay, so that's settled, right? There's no issue?
none that I'm aware of.
But I
Okay.
guess to Pat's point, number 3 says, do we get any communication from residents, right?
Residents, yes.
So, but.
I think they're asking if any of you have been alerted by residents or anybody about potential fraud or anything that you can think of.
Internal to town dollars.
Yes.
Right,
And I assume no one has,
right.
and if we're good. What's today, the 15th?
Yes. Let me check my text.
This is for you. The only other item I just wanted to mention under others,
Well, Pat has a question on the letter.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, on the letter, June 1, from O'Connor and Davies, I'm not quite certain what this paragraph 5 means.
Well, we get a separate reporting grants from the auditors every year, don't we, Ed? Isn't that covered under that separate document we get?
Yeah, you get one on the federal audit, state single audit, and the audit report.
But I guess to Pat's question, that's not part of the CAFR, which is what this is saying, right? It comes under
CAFR is
that.
the thick document.
Wait,
Right, but it comes under that other, we get a smaller report than every year, don't we?
yes.
That's on, yeah, that's on the
Right.
grants, the federal and state grant, single audit.
So the paragraph starting with generally,
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was a one above that. That was,
yeah, I'm
I read the wrong
sorry,
one,
I'm
sorry.
It's referring to this RSI, supplementary information,
Yeah, it's required supplementary information.
and then the last sentence is, however, the RSI will not be audited, and because the limited procedures do not provide us with sufficient evidence to express an opinion or provide any assurance, we will not express or an opinion or provide any assurance on the RSI. Well, why are they asking for it then?
Because they're generally accepted accounting, government accounting principles require it to be in the report, even though it won't all be
It's
audited.
irrelevant? Okay,
It's like budgets, OPEB information, and stuff like that.
okay.
But it's not his, it's a form letter that everybody who does an audit will have to fill out
Yeah,
and ask.
I assumed that might be the case. Thank you.
It's just showing the limits of the scope of what their work will
Right.
be.
Yes, but why ask for it if they don't need it? But I understand, it's a form letter.
Thank you, Pat. The only other item I have before we go to board comments, the workshop committee, whatever, we ended up calling it for fire,
Fire and
Has
Medical
had-
Workshop Group.
which Michael labeled, has had 2 meetings. Actually, the second meeting was yesterday. We are hoping to have 2 more meetings before our next Board of Finance meeting. And at that time, we should be able to maybe update board members on what things are looking like and where we're headed.
Oh, so we need an agenda item added
Yes.
For next
meeting.
meeting.
We're just absorbing information and becoming limited experts in the field.
So I have a question regarding agendas.
Sure.
What is the formal process for adding an item to the agenda? Who is contacted?
We're doing it
Well,
now.
generally, the chairman sets the agenda, so you'd
Yes,
have to
I
ask,
know.
you'd have to ask Rich, right?
Well, we have a request, that's why I'm asking.
Well, I was going to enter it as part of public comment.
Okay,
We did get a request from a resident asking to discuss.
Yeah, that could be part of public comment. I could read it.
Again, and we will, or our intention is to add a line item or an agenda item for September to bring the board up to date as to where Michael, I, the chief, and Mrs. Winkowski are. It was a workshop set up that really is outside the Board of Finance, other than at budget time when we discuss appropriations. It's more for informational purposes only, just as Diane used to bring us up to date on the middle school project.
so the answer to my question is
If
that it
there's-
goes to the
it should
chair.
Send it to Mrs. Winkowski. Mrs. Winkowski then will forward to me, and I will make the determination if it's relevant to this board.
Okay, so to Ed and then to Rich?
Yes.
Thank you.
But again, requests for items to discuss should be items that are within our jurisdiction.
Yes.
Having said that, board members have any questions?
Well, no, just,
Yes.
we received a note here attached to the latest Board of Ed monthly report that states that the business manager is looking into changes in reporting to us, reporting format. Is that, is that how this reads? Or is it he's just having trouble tracking things with the current technology he has?
The special report that we've asked them to create and they've been providing us, as I said, it's outside what is required. They've been doing it for us. I think it's just a matter of getting him up to speed to present something to us.
Well, we should pretty much wait and see what who the new school business manager on a permanent basis will be. And then
Yes.
try to work with them to maybe refine things a little bit further.
That is the next slide here. I would suggest that you and I meet with that person, just to make sure come budget time, he's clear on, or she's clear on what
Yeah.
we're looking for. I'm more concerned with that report from them in the format that we want than anything else, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
Any other comments from board members? Hearing none, public comment.
All right.
Sally?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Buemi, 5 Blossom Drive. Of course, you know I'm going to talk about MRSA, MRSA, the Municipal Revenue Sharing Account, not to be confused with MRS, which is the Sales Tax Fund, which are two separate and distinct revenue line items in our revenue budget. For 17-18, how much did we budget for MRSA, MRSA?
Zero.
Thank you, 0. How much did we receive? Probably in late June, we probably got it.
1485.
Excuse me?
$1 million.
1,475,000?
465, I think it was.
So a little more than 1.4 million.
Right.
So that's a regular line item budget that we budgeted 0, but we got 1.4 million. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that Mr. Hallahan said, which is that MRSA's outside the budgeting process. It really is not at all. I know but it is accounted separately, but the reason why, if you look at the special funds, we started the year with 1.3 in MRSA and ended in 1.6, is because we did in fact receive 1.4 and used 1.1 of it. So that's why it went up 300,000. But to say that it's not in the budget is a bit misleading, because if you look on page 13 of both the pre and the post expenditure budget under streets and roads, that's where the bulk of the $1 million that was used for MRSA is. Is that not correct?
Yep.
Correct. And so that changes the streets and roads expenditure budget from being almost 15% over to almost 30% under, which is the $1 million swing. Correct? So that's where the MRSA money directly affects our budgeting because it affects our expenditures, correct?
Right.
If we didn't get it, so I just wanted to clarify that because it's I just, it still bothers me that we use MRSA we list MRSA, I should say, as a regular revenue line item. Therefore, when we do budget for it, like we did in 16, 17, we budgeted 1.4 and we got it. I mean, because it's a budgeted revenue line item, it impacts the mill rate. Is that not true?
Correct.
Correct. So when we budgeted 0 for this fiscal year that just ended, that also impacted the mill rate, did it not? Yes. So it certainly has a major impact on our budget, but we account for it differently. That's why you see those huge negative numbers of almost $1 million under streets and roads that you would not see if we had no MRSA money, correct? Or if we had to use.
Right, well, in this particular year.
Yes.
If I didn't budget them under the expenditures there, I wouldn't have the overages either, because they'd be over in the other fund.
Right, but we include it as a revenue line item, but then we commingle it with our expenditure budget. That's the part that bothers me, and you know
This particular year,
that.
we didn't have it in as revenue.
Well, it's still a revenue line item, even though it was 0. But we received 1.4 million, so we were 1.4 million over on that line item, correct?
No, because
Why not?
we showed the revenue in the MRSA special fund, not in the general fund.
How about last year when we did budget it as 1.4 million and we received the 1.4 million? Was it in the revenue budget? So that's my point. It's reflected, but it is reflected in the expenditure budget for this year, as an example. It made a $1 million difference in streets and roads, correct? You already acknowledged that.
Right, but like I said, if I didn't put those budgeted items in there, they would have been over in the other fund, I wouldn't have the negative line items.
Right. Well, I guess I'm saying, and I know we've had this discussion
I know.
many times, and you say that the accountants have no problem with it. I have a problem with it because it's commingling a revenue source with expenditures, and I just think it's a confusing thing for the Board of Finance, and it's definitely confusing for the people.
But the other thing I wanted to say is I think it'll be more confusing if you take all those budgeted items and put them in a separate fund for a few years, and then the state decides we're not going to give you the money anymore and have to put them back. Your budgets will have no consistency from year to year so that you can follow what's going on.
Okay, I understand that, but there's other items on the special revenue. You know, there's library, recreation, police, fire. Those are not regular revenue line items, right?
No, most of those are small.
Right.
Except for
well,
outside
police
duty.
and fire, I
Right.
don't consider 414,000 small. But those are not revenue line items. Those are truly special funds. That's what I'm trying to say. MRSA is included on the list with those special funds, but it is a revenue line item. That's what bothers me.
Well, we put it on there so the Board of Finance could see the activity. That's why it's
Yes.
listed separately from the.
Right, but I'm not sure everyone on the Board of Finance really understood that we did get 1.4 million in MRSA money this year, and that's
What's on the
why,
report?
yeah. But,
I think we all know that.
but to say that it's not part of the budgetary process is very misleading because it had a tremendous impact on the expenditure budget, specifically page 13, streets and roads. It had $1 million
But the
impact.
impact this year was, when we were doing the budget, they did not say we were gonna get that money. So I can't put it in the budget at all. That's why we changed this year from prior years. With prior years, they told us we were gonna get it, we budgeted it, we put it there, but this year, they didn't say we were gonna get it. So after all the budgets were done and approved.
On the MRS sales tax
Yeah.
line item,
Yeah.
that's, you know, you might as well roll the dice. Is that fair to say? I
We
mean,
didn't get it, I know.
I know, we got
We had
zip.
700,000 in there.
Well, we budgeted for 702,000, we got
Right.
0.
Correct.
And, I mean, some years, we budgeted over $1 million, and then we cut it back, and some years we were hundreds of $1,000s more than we got.
Right.
It must pose a tremendous challenge to you, that particular revenue line item.
know what to put
What
there.
explanation do you get for years when we get hundreds of thousands more than we thought, and years like this year where we got zero, when we
Because this is
budgeted?
what was approved up there, and this is what we have to live with.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard, because sometimes we don't know exactly what's going to come. Look at the Board of Ed money, DCS, was called one thing,
Well,
and then they changed it.
but that's different, because we still got the money that we thought we were gonna get, if not a little bit more. About 50,000 more, if my memory serves me correctly. I don't care what you call it. If they wanna call it special ed or ECS, and we budgeted 800,000 for ECS and 2.5 million for special ed. We got 0 for special ed, but we got the 3.3 million
Right.
plus. So we came out ahead. They could call it what they want. I just want the money. Is that bad to say? So, but the MRS sales tax fund is completely different. It's all over the place, and I have all of the reports from the past 6 or 7 years, and it's it's all over the place. Is there some sort of formula that determines the allocation to each municipality for that sales?
There probably is, but that's never been shared with us.
Huh.
And realize.
I have to call some of my friends at Oak.
You've been through the budget process with, every 2 weeks, the state's changing the numbers that they're giving us during the budget process. And that's all the towns that have to get their budgets done by May and June, and the state is several months late.
I know, I've had discussions with our state representatives about trying to improve the timing of the information that they can give us in time for us to budget. That's, when I was on the Board of Finance in the 80s, that was a big problem, so nothing's changed in that regard, Mr. Chairman. I agree with you.
I think it's gotten worse. It's, at least even in the last 10 years, we've seen it get pushed further and further out. Michael, you've been on as long as I have, probably a few years more than I have. There were some years it wasn't too bad. There was some minor fluctuations as the months progressed, but we've been seeing major swings in a 2-week period.
And the sales tax money, the MRSA sales tax, that wasn't even a swing. They just didn't give it to us at all. But I can see
That's
if
what
they
I'm
gave us
saying.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to give us a share of some sales tax money, to get less is one thing, but we just got 0.
Right, but then we budgeted 0 for MRSA, ending in A, and we got 1.4 million.
Right.
So, you could look at it as, well, all right, you didn't get 700,000, but you got 1.4, so you're 700,000 ahead. Look at those two revenue line items, I guess, but, anyway, I'm glad that, we got the MRSA money, because otherwise, our ending fund balance, might be 300,000 instead of 1 million, right? Instead of 1 million, 1.6
Well, we
million.
might not have decided to
Well, it would've
apply
been
a million of it toward the current budget.
Right, but then we would have been way over expended, and you wouldn't have the surplus that you're talking about, so, is that correct, Mr.
Yeah, there'd
Szynkowski?
be a lot of.
Remember, we
There-
have a
Scenario.
$1.77 million surplus. And even though some folks in town might, in the old days, a few years back, would say that means that we're being overtaxed because we have such a large surplus, the point is, at least $1 million of it is due to the MRSA money that we never expected to get in the first place. So
Right.
we cannot, we cannot take responsibility for $1 million of the $1,770,000 surplus. But still having a surplus of $770,000 means that this town is managed quite well.
Agreed.
From top to bottom.
Right, but, absolutely, I'm not, if you're really listening to me carefully, I'm not being argumentative, I'm trying to be factual. And if you look at the pre-year-end expenditure book, the money was spent, because we had
Absolutely.
storms, we had a lot of storms in March, we had a storm every week. So we spent $2.6 million on streets and roads, even though we budgeted 2.2. But because of the MRSA money, it's
Less
way
than
under.
$1
It's $1 million swing.
Yeah.
So that's really I'm very thankful that we got the MRSA money. I'm still frustrated with how it's accounted for. Do you know of any municipalities that do not have MRSA in their revenue budget and categorize it as a grant instead of a revenue line item?
No, I haven't really checked anybody. I checked our auditors and they were good, so.
Now, I know you've told
I
me
know,
many
but that's-
times our auditors
I've
are
got to go
good.
with the people who are going to review everything.
Right, right. Well, I'm going to ask some other finance directors how they account for their
I'm sure you'll see it
MRSA.
different, various ways.
Right, right, okay. Wait, let me just get my list. I was writing questions as we went along. I covered that one. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I thank you for your time, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Any other comments?
Sir, yes?
You have a comment?
No, I do. Well, I do on behalf of someone else.
Okay.
Yeah, we received a letter from Kathy Grant regarding the fire department and possible needs changes in spending in the future, and she asked me to read her letter. I just wanted to read the last 3 paragraphs of it
Fine.
very quickly. She'll, by the way, her letter reads here that my understanding is that the Board of Finance does not agree with Chief Jensweski, I know I mispronounced that, about the severity of understaffing and apparatus issues, or they acknowledge it but have not made it a priority. Either way, with due respect to the Board of, with all due respect, the Board of Finance should not be making decisions about the necessity of emergency services. No one on the board has any experience in fire safety and medical decision-making. That is why we hire a fire chief that we know will give us sound advice about how to keep the residents safe in our town without breaking the bank. We need to bring North Haven into compliance with the national standards outlined in NFPA 1710. This is a very complicated issue with varying degrees and nuances about the circumstances. It is not fair to the fire department team of professionals who are exhausted working under the current conditions and who put their lives on the line every day to protect us and have to work without proper staffing and equipment. It is terrible that we treat our first responders this way. Our residents are at a greater risk when the response time is longer than it should be. The Board of Finance should not be burdened with making these difficult decisions in areas outside their expertise. I am asking the members of the Board of Finance to seek a second opinion and hire an independent company to assess the needs of the fire department. The recommendations should be binding. Can you kindly put it on the agenda for the next meeting? She'll want it on for September. I am suggesting an independent company to assess the needs of the fire department because it is difficult for the Board of Finance to remain unbiased when trying to keep our taxes low. Our department, over the next year or so, our town's expansion of affordable and elderly housing, as well as Amazon's, as well as Amazon, which will offset the cost of implementing the fire chief's plan, will exacerbate the current situation and the need for emergency services. The time is now to equip the fire department with the personnel and apparatus they need to keep up with the growing needs of the community. If you are not willing to implement the chief's recommendation, then I implore you to hire an independent company to assess the needs of the town. Thank you for letting me read that. As I say, Kathy Grant will be here at the next meeting because she wanted the first selectman to also be present when discussing this. Yeah, as part of public comment at least. But,
Yes, that's
but
fine.
agenda item if you wish. But
As I said earlier, we did add it as an agenda item for next month because based on our meeting that you and I are both part of, I think we might be close to having some better handle on the situation. I don't feel the town at this point is in jeopardy with medical. But
Yeah. No
we
need,
can, no need
no
to
need
go
to
through.
discuss this
Yeah.
tonight. I'd rather she be present.
And then as far as equipment, this board has approved over $13 million in the last few years for the fire department.
That's correct, and we can have those illustrations for the next meeting if necessary.
Anything else?
I know it's not for, I guess I would add that, you know, we make decisions all the time about different departments here. I'm not an expert in what the social workers do here. I'm not an expert in what the police department does, and I don't think that other people on the board are as well. But ultimately, we have to make a reasoned judgment on how much to allocate to them, and then they, you know, through the budget process, you know, provide services to the town. So while Kathy Grant is correct, I'm certainly not an expert in emergency response or medical response for the town. We make these judgments all the time. It's no different than judgments we make for other departments. So I'll leave it at that. She'll be here next month, it
Yeah.
sounds like. And
I
maybe
agree
we'll
with you
talk some more,
100%, and she said other residents in town are concerned the same way she is, and hopefully the way that we report in the weeks and months to come on our findings and from our workshop group and our conclusions and recommendations will make it clear that we have looked at this as a priority and are addressing it.
Thank you.
Very good.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Is there a
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.